Copyright the University of Auckland. All rights reserved. The content and delivery of lectures in this course are protected by copyright. Material belonging to others may have been used in these lectures and copied by and solely for the educational purposes of the university under license. You may record the lectures for the purposes of private study or research, but you may not upload onto any third-party site, make a further copy, or sell, alter, or further reproduce or distribute any part of these lectures to any other person. Failure to comply with the terms of this warning may expose you to legal action for copyright infringement by the copyright owner and/or disciplinary action by the university.
So, can you still see me okay? Yep, that's good. Okay, well, we might as well kick off. There might be a few late stragglers, as I said. The vagaries of Auckland weather are that some sides of the city there wasn't much of a storm, and on our side there was big tornadoes. So, it's from one end of the extreme to the other. But I've explained to them that it's Sunday lunchtime for you, and we really do appreciate you giving up this time, Nate. Thank you so much. As I've said to them, you are an inspirational teacher and a real role model for them if they want to progress and move ahead into the teaching profession. It's somebody who's constantly thinking about, reflecting on their teaching, and constantly asks the question about, what is it we're doing and why are we doing it? So look forward to this. Go, as I said, around about 35, 40 minutes, or whatever you feel comfortable with, and I'll hand it across to you. Thank you.
All right, let me set a timer here so I can stay on track. Well, you just keep me on task here. I'll look at the clock and I'll figure it out. Let me share my screen here. So I kind of made a mistake here of, how's that work? Can you see that thing moving up and down?
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for having me, Dr. Robbins, and thanks for having me, everybody. Good to be here. I was there a couple years ago in person, loved it out there, and I was telling some family members I'd be teaching a class in New Zealand the last couple of days. They're like, wow, that's amazing. When are you leaving? I was like, I'm not. But this is good, though. There's less of a carbon or a footprint on this one, right, on the atmosphere, so this is good. So I made the mistake of kind of changing my, this is based on a couple presentations, 3 or 4 presentations I've given in the last couple of years. And I wanted to do something a little bit different. I was experimenting with some different technology and this and that. So the amount of time I've spent on messing with this thing the last 2 days has been ridiculous. I didn't get to bed until 3 in the morning, and had very little work to show for it just because I was experimenting with some stuff. So, and I'm in the summer. I've got 2 more weeks till I go back to school. So I've just been with my 2 kids the entire summer, and very little reading. So I'm out of it. I'm so rusty, and so I'm going to be really rusty today, so forgive me for that. Well, let's start, because it'll take me forever. Let's just get right to this here. You see that little PS there? I'm sure you've all read that by now. You are lucky to have Dr. Ovens there. I do love him. I think he's a fantastic human being, and you're lucky to have him. I know it's always hard for students to know what you have until sometimes you're done with school and you reflect back, but something to just think about as you go through your semester here, or trimester, or quarter, whatever you're on, is definitely value and appreciate him. So expectations and agreements, whenever I go and speak to people, I want to cover that first, because teachers are some of the worst listeners I've ever been around in my life. And of course, if their students talk in class, they get all mad, and students get in trouble. But teachers are the worst. You put them in a room and they don't know how to be quiet. So I always remind them to be quiet. The expectation agreements, if you look at some of the images here, you see that one here. So don't talk. If you do, whisper so others aren't disrupted. Obviously, careful with your phone. Check it if you need to, but try to stay off that as best as you can. If somebody's talking next to you and they're making noise, then do what that kid's doing right there. Just give them a little psh. What we tell our kids in my class, we say, I know you're educated if you do 2 things. You're an educated person if you don't tailgate. Now, tailgating, I don't know if you know what tailgating is, but that means if you drive too close to somebody, you're behind them and you're too close. So if you tailgate, you are risking their life, your life, the people behind you, the people in your car. You're risking lives because you're tailgating. You don't have to tailgate. You should have a safe distance between you. Now, two things with tailgating. You're not aware you're tailgating, and that's a problem. Or you are aware and you don't care and you're doing it anyways. And that's equally a problem. In a society where everybody's connected to each other, if you don't have that awareness or you don't care, then you're a danger. So to me, being educated means that you understand that there are others, they matter, and everything you do affects them, and you're completely aware of that. So while you're sitting there, even if you're bored, there might be conversation you want to get into, but that affects other people, sitting around you. If I were there in person, I would see you talking, and I might think, that's kind of disrespectful, unless you kept it short and you were whispering. So just having that awareness. The other thing I tell them is, so you don't tailgate, that's how I know you're educated. The second one is you don't talk when somebody's talking. Because you wouldn't want somebody to talk when you're talking. And even though I may bore you to death, you just got to figure out and find that strength, how to just relax. Think about something else. Because that's respectful behavior, to me at least. My class, our culture, we have a law. This is our law. And it's do no harm. If you look at number 1 there, it's do no harm. When I do this, are you able to see the cursor from my computer?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So do no harm. That is our law. Students can choose not to participate. They can do all sorts of things and not do all sorts of things. And I'm okay with that. They cannot harm others. They don't have that right. That is our law. Now what we'll ask them is, what is your job? What is your responsibility? And that's number 2 there. Their job is to take care of each other. And what I expect from them is that they try to do their best and they're kind and that they listen. That's our class culture is built off of those 5 things there. But it's ultimately begins with do no harm. Because I respect the student if they choose not to do something. I honor that choice. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to figure out why, and we're going to try to adjust. But I'm not going to force them to do things. And we don't accept them, forcing others to do things or not do things, essentially harming others. They can't just harm somebody. They can sit out and harm themselves if they wish to a degree. But so do no harm. And one of the things we'll tell the kids is if you're talking when someone's talking, you're disrupting others, that's harming others. If you're getting in the way of my teaching, you're harming me. You don't have the right to do that. You can go sit over there and not disrupt people, and that's fine, because you need to get away from others. So that's the expectations today while you're sitting in there. Even if I bore you, just figure out a way to not harm others. You don't have to stay focused, but just don't disrupt others. All right, this is your job today. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. Okay, a lot of this is my opinion. It's an informed opinion, I think. And there's some stuff that may not make sense to you or you may not be able to use, but figure out what you can use. All right, who am I? Briefly, that's my wife, Lindsay. I think we have our anniversary coming up in 7 days. I think it's 13 years. And those are our 2 kids, Cooper and Charlotte. That's her right there. I just love that picture, so I always include it in here. Cooper he just turned 8, and she's about to be 3. So my summer as a teacher, I do work a little bit, but my wife works. So my day is I'm with these 2 all day, trying to figure out ways to get them out of the house, play outside, do different things. My summer is much harder than my school year because I'm with these 2 kids all day. My academic interests, lots of things there. Just quickly look, boom, boom, okay, who cares? All right. So, from what I've read from Alan there, he's framed the class. Have you framed it for them already the way you framed it for me in the email?
Yeah. So
okay. So the principal says, I don't think we need PE. Well, tell me why we need PE. All right, so that's a great question. Why should we have PE? Why should we have it? Why should there be a thing called PE, and why should it be in schools? All right, in order to answer that question, though, you have to ask a different question. All right, why education and why school? Because typically PE is in school, typically, right? But why school? So the why of PE is dependent upon the why of school. The why of school is dependent upon essentially the why of society or a community. Why should we have a society or a community? What is this society or community about? What are our values? So I'm using a program called Liquid Text, by the way. There's a PDF of a slideshow embedded into the program, and at any point I can start doing things like that. So I'm testing this out today because I want to make some notes as we go too. All right, so consider this first. This is just something I want to throw out there first. This is Alfred Whitehead, philosopher from the early 1900s, British, then he came out to America. A brilliant philosopher. He says that all life aims to live well, to live better. Okay, all life, everything. It's trying to live well, to live better. It's not simply trying to survive. It's trying to survive so that it can live well. And then it's trying to live well so that it can live even better. He calls this a greater capacity for the richness of experience. Let me just say that again kind of slow. Everything is seeking a greater capacity for the richness of experience. That's why organisms change, evolve, adapt. They're always trying to live well, to live better. Everything is trying to do this. Every human being is trying to do this. That's what everybody's doing. You can call it, if you look over here to the right, you see the actualizing tendency. You might have heard of self-actualization before from Maslow. Carl Rogers called it the actualizing tendency. So it's not like where you just reach a point. I've done it, I've made it, I've actualized. It's a tendency to actualize potential. This is what drives life. Life is essentially a creative spark. All forms of life are creative forms. All right, now this really matters, and you'll see why in just a minute. So all forms of life, they're creative forms, right? They're forms of creativity. You are a form of creativity. Everything around you is a form of creativity. It's trying to grow, develop, and advance creatively. It's trying to create itself. Everybody. And all these forms are attached to all other forms. Okay, they're all attached. So all members of a society are attached. So a good society, to me, is well attached. Everybody's striving to grow, expand, develop, and they're all attached. So a good society is well attached so that everybody can grow, expand, and develop. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Something?
Yep, nods there.
All right, so a good society honors the fact that all people are trying to be well. They're all worth the same. They all matter. To me, that's what a good society is, based on the fact that everything is trying to grow and develop and express itself, right? So, in short, a good society is about the well-being of all, right? A good society is about the well-being of all. That's what a good society is, in my view. And of course, a good society knows that everybody is bound up with everybody else, so all well-being is bound up with all other well-being. So you can't be well at the expense of others. We have to be well together. We have to negotiate that, dialogue it. We have to figure it out together. I can't be well at your expense. That wouldn't be good. So a good society is about the relative well-being of all. All right, so what, right? Does anybody or everybody agree across the world on this? Yes, we all agree this is what a good society is. So whose values win? Who gets to decide? What is education about? What is society about? What is physical education about? Who gets to decide? Do I get to decide? Do you? Whoever's in charge? Who gets to decide? All right, so where do you begin to answer those questions? What is school for? Why should we have PE? All right, in my country, this is where I think we begin, in the United States. I think the Declaration of Independence, this is like our binding, guiding document that's supposed to speak of our highest values. If you look at this document, you'll see that it's essentially saying what Whitehead is saying, that everybody, right, is trying to, they can't help it, they're endowed by these, what makes everybody equal is they're all trying to live well, to live better. They can't help it. These are unalienable rights. They're all trying to do it, and they can't help it. And if you look at live well, and live better, it matches right up there with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right there. It totally matches up. So the Declaration of Independence, we were saying, look, we want independence. We don't want somebody to rule over us. We want to be able to rule ourselves, essentially. We're all trying to live well, to live better. So we would like independence. Now, so what we need to do is we need to secure those rights. We need to form a government from the consent of the governed. The people have to be able to govern themselves. It can't be a tyrant. We have to do it. And if you look at the bottom here, organize the powers in such form, and they're based on principles. So we're going to organize society based on the principles of well-being for all. Everything up here that you're seeing right up in here, that's all saying well-being for all. That's what that's saying. That's what the Declaration of Independence is. Now, by the way, when they wrote these words, black people weren't considered people, women couldn't vote, all this kind of stuff. So our country never really took this stuff seriously. But we did write it down, and this is our guiding document. And we've been moving closer to this ideal throughout history, but we have a whole lot of work to do. But there it is. This is the one thing I think that in my country, everybody, because we are states that are united, what are we united around? Well, we're supposed to be united around this commitment. That's what we're supposed to be united around. So that's what school is for. That's what politics and government is for. If you look at our Constitution, it says right there, we the people. Now, it was never we the people. It was just some people. It's been getting better, of course. The whole point of organizing is to form, like what it says here, a more perfect union. That's the whole point. A more perfect union where everybody matters and everybody can be well. That's the whole point, at least on paper, right? And then the United Nations Charter says pretty much the same thing. And from what I understand, I think New Zealand is on board with the United Nations Charter as well. So where do you begin with what is school for, what is education for? I think that's where you begin. In my country, that's the only objective place to begin. Because whose values get to rule the day? To me, you have to start with those values. Now, we could always work to change those values with the input of the people, but I can't determine what values hold at my school, the ultimate values. Neither can that teacher or that principal or that superintendent. The community kind of, yes, but what if the community is a white supremacist community and their values, they don't fit with these values? Whose values should win there? So that's the question. Whose values do we start with? I think that's where you start. So in New Zealand, what's education for? What's PE for? What's society for? You start with your guiding documents. And I think they essentially say about the same thing. A fair society, democracy, well-being for all. Alan, would you agree with that? Is that roughly what New Zealand is about, objectively?
Oh, definitely, I believe so. And when you were talking there, we have a treaty of Waitangi, so I was reflecting back on that, what that actually means. And we probably follow the British notion of sort of having a constitution, but not a written constitution. So it's a sort of a living series of understandings, but not written down like the American one is. But yeah, nothing you've said would be out of our idea.
All right, so everybody follow me there right now. We're talking about these documents. They are about a commitment to well-being for all. So any form of government, school, whatever, anything like that, politics, right? For it to be legitimate, it has to be about well-being for all. Which means, by the way, that much of our government, politics, school, at least here in the States, is quite illegitimate, by the way. And much of our culture, business, even sport, is not legitimate when you compare it to our highest values on data. So I really want to draw attention to that idea of attaching, right? We are all attached. A good society is well attached. And if you look down there, I said here that it's really a declaration of interdependence. There is no independence. It's really interdependence. All right, so here's a book from Nick Susanis. It's called Unflattening. It's a brilliant book. Right here, what he's showing, he's talking about attachments. I'm not going to read you everything it says. If you can scan it, great. But he's saying you can't cut your bonds. That's what makes you who you are. Because we're always bound up. We're always products and producers. The key one right here is up there. You can see that arrow. Emancipation does not mean freed from bonds, but well attached. Okay, and then I highlight it here as well. The strings stay on, he says. So these attachments, they're not constraints, but forces to harness. So this is what school is for. This is what politics is for. we recognize these attachments and then we harness the right ones for certain forces, or we harness those forces for certain ends, and the ends would be well-being for all. So school is about, if you look right here, that word see, seeing these attachments. That's what you have all these different subjects for, is to see the attachments. You're getting to know how we're attached, personally, interpersonally, socially, ecologically, so that then you can harness these forces to make sure that we are well attached. That's the point of school. And so the point of education, any public institution, is to be well attached, personally, socially, ecologically. You got to be aware of these attachments. That's what you do in school, one of the things. And then you harness the right ones. Okay, so better motor coordination. That's better attaching, personally. Writing, thinking, math, whatever. That's better attaching. That's becoming more well attached. Dialogue, perspective taking. That's becoming well attached. So what we need to do, if we take democracy seriously, is cultivate and protect capabilities for the well-being for all. You have to purposely do this. Purposely do this. A couple of different types of cultures or aspects of our culture that we have generally. We have work and play. You see those two words there, work and play. These are examples of work, meaningful work in our culture. Politics, government, economics, healthcare, education. That's the meaningful work that you need to sustain in a culture if you want people to be well. And it needs to be always about, of course my phone rings here, watch this. Nope, didn't. And then you have the play part of culture, art, storytelling, sport, music, entertainment, and there's more, of course. All these things here influence the greater culture, your work culture and your play culture. Okay? So what I want to refer to here are three ethics: worth, work, and play. So the worth ethic is essentially everything we talked about before. Hey, everybody matters, everybody's worth the same, they're trying to live well, they're trying to be well, and so we need to honor and recognize that and create the conditions so that can happen. That is called a worth ethic. Right? That is not our dominant ethic in my country. Our country is get ahead, do what you can, become powerful, rich, be famous, lie, cheat, steal. That's essentially our dominant worth ethic in our country. It's a work ethic on that. It's a greed ethic. Okay? Work is good, play is good when they are grounded in the work or the worth ethic. So this is the worth ethic. It's by these guys. If you could read that book there, the authors, I don't know if you can quite see that, but it's a great book. It's a fantastic book. And what they're saying here is the worth ethic is three things. Respect is a birthright. You get respect by being alive because you're trying to live well, to live better just like me. And I have to respect that. And because I respect that, you should have freedom to grow. And I should have freedom to grow. And it's relative freedom because we're bound up with each other. And because we need freedom to grow, we need to have opportunities for choice. So where they're coming from, if you look right here, they're coming from the park and recreation field there. Okay? So a good example of opportunities for choice would be to have places where people can go and hike or kayak or something like that, protected space or whatever. Not everybody has to do that, but you provide them the choices to be able to do that. And the more they can do some of those things, the more connected they are with their environment, each other, yada, yada, yada. So the worth ethic is what should dominate all the other ethics, all the other parts of our culture, what I'm going to boil down into is the work and the play ethic. And I'm going to spend more time talking about the play ethic. And here's why I think the play ethic right now is something we really need to pay attention to. So this is Thomas Hanna in a book in the 60s called Bodies in Revolt. He says the only responsible adaptation to our environment right now, the way things are, is the cultivation of the experience of rich enjoyment and the learning of playful behavior. He's saying So, can you see that okay?
Yep.
I don't know why iTunes popped up.
No, that's coming through good, just as it was before.
Weird, yeah. So on my screen, I'm not getting... Okay, there we go. So the final point I want to make here, then I'm getting into the nuts and bolts of how we would do this in PE, or at least how I do it. What he says here is if we don't create a culture which positively approves of play, essentially is what he's saying. we don't value artful enjoyment of our environment, we will essentially destroy ourselves. We destroy the environment, and we destroy ourselves if we don't value play, and we don't play. If you don't play, you don't value play. If the work ethic just reigns, then we destroy ourselves. Those who can't live fully become destroyers of life. I love that quote. So I like this term, emancipation, right? We become well attached, and we do it through play. Oh, here come the notifications. Oh, the wife doesn't send a crazy text here. Oh no, hey, look at that. You know what I did? I turned off the notifications, but when the thing restarted, it, whatchamacallit? It did this. Great color. That's By the way, when you have kids, those things become real important if you saw that text. I'm sitting in our playroom right now. We built an extra playroom, and it's not well ventilated, but we have like hardwood floors in the other rooms, and so like everything echoes. So I'm in here with the carpet for the audio here, the acoustics, but there's like no circulation in this room. So if you see sweat start to just show up, it's this room. There's no circulation, and it's like 85 over here Fahrenheit. So I texted her. Let's see if she responds back with okay. So here, this is Pat Kane's work. He writes on the play ethic, and it's a brilliant book too. But what he's saying, if you look right there, forging a good society via the power and potential of play. Now I'm going to skip ahead. Right here, he talks about these 5 ways that play can save the world. It's an essential component of human nature. One of our better parts. The more we express it, the better we become. All right, so that contributes to a good democracy. That contributes to well-being for all. So a society needs to value something like play. School needs to value play because that's part of our, our expressing ourselves, learning about ourselves, and that helps to create democratic capabilities. If we feel good, then we have a better chance of listening to others, things like that. So play is really valuable. There's more stuff it says there, but I'm going to skip ahead. Here's Eleanor Matheny in the 60s out here saying, our primary job as physical educators is to provide opportunities for children to move in many ways and for many reasons. And they need to be challenging and satisfying movement experiences. That's what PE is for, not fitness, the obesity crisis, the reduction of health costs, whatever. It's people can move in many different ways for many different reasons. We got to give them challenging and satisfying experiences. And then they'll grow and they'll develop and they'll be well from that. All right, so how do we do this? By the way, I wanted to show you something here. Play develops what you would call sympathetic connections. Here's a good example. Well, I had it on the computer, but it kind of disappeared here. If you have a chance to find this, I won't be able to hit play here, but essentially this kid, he just heard a violin for the first time. This woman, if you can see right here, he's standing there, and this woman's on the other side of the room. As soon as she plays the violin, he just goes right up to her and like hugs her leg. So music is a form of play, and talk about developing sympathetic connections. He hears this thing and it makes him feel, just uplifts him. And what does he do? He goes closer to her and he embraces her. So play gives us an opportunity to do that with each other. It helps develop democracy. Play can. It can. It doesn't always, but it can. If it's always grounded in the worth ethic, right? So how do we do this in PE? First, you have to establish a culture of respect in class. And it isn't teacher respect or student respect to teacher. It's just a culture of respect everywhere. PE has to be meaningful. The things you do need to go through meaning. If it's not meaningful, it's not going to stick. It's not going to last. And you always have to have the critical piece. So PE is movement culture, and it is for the greater movement culture. Movement culture is a significant part of the greater culture. And if we don't do that culture well, movement culture, that negatively affects the greater culture. If we do it well, it helps to form a more perfect union, as I said before. So what we should be doing in PE is also taking a look at the greater movement culture and analyzing it, examining it, critiquing it when it's not in line with the worth ethic. That's what we need to be doing to keep the movement culture healthy. So we develop movement culture in class by playing, by doing things that are meaningful. We develop the worth ethic by being respectful, and then we make sure that the movement culture is always grounded in the worth ethic by being critical of it when it's not. That's why you always have to have that critical piece. Now, a movement or a culture of respect. Here's Carl Rogers. Here's how you want to develop a culture of respect. Well, you begin with what you call unconditional positive regard. You see every student with unconditional positive regard. You hold them in a positive regard, unconditional. Not when they do things the right way or the way you like it. It's not a good student because they listen. They're a good kid, period. So you accept them as of unconditional worth. That's the first thing you do as a teacher. First thing. Because what that does, it fosters creativity. Second, you provide a climate where external evaluation is at least close to being absent. It's not you making the determination on what's good. They get to make the determination too, or we do. Because it's movement. There's a lot of different ways of doing things. It's not just how you say it needs to be done. And that fosters creativity. And what he says basically is a culture of psychological and physical safety. If you can create that in class, then now all the things that you want to do may work. People have to feel like they belong. If I feel that I belong, and who I am matters, that I am matters and is honored, then I will engage as a responsible member of this community. And that's what school is for. And that has to happen in your class. Now, meaningful, when I said meaningful PE, what does this mean? Well, these are some elements of meaningful PE. There needs to be challenge, but it's got to be just right. Social interaction, well, that's already there. This is why I think, by the way, you can't have online PE. Because you're going to miss the social interaction. If you don't have online PE, it's not contributing to democracy. I don't think that works. I think you got to be with people and you got to touch people. You got to play with people. You got to touch them. That intimate contact is crucial for developing a democracy. It has to be fun. And you have to grow and develop, increase motor confidence. But of course, in order to get that happening, it's got to be fun, and there's got to be just the right amount of challenge. And it's got to be relevant. If all the things you do in your curriculum, if they don't line up with this stuff, good luck. It's not going to stick. And it's probably going to be against people's wishes, too. Alan recognizes this. I like the little shout out at the end there, by the way, if you can see that. But I'm mentioning this, I'm sure you've seen it or you might go back to it at some point. But I think that meaningful and transformative piece is really key here. You want them to focus on the feel. How does it feel? That's what you need to be concerned with. We're going to play this game. We're going to do this thing. Well, how does it feel to the student? It's not good in and of itself. It's good depending on how it feels for the student. You have to recognize that, create conditions to create, satisfying movement experiences, as Elon Matheny said. Embrace diversity. Don't try to flatten it. Look, everybody needs to be like this at the same time. Here's our criteria for success. It looks like this. Everybody's got to be here in order to get this grade. See, that's not justice. That's not good. That's anti-democratic. Involve the students to help co-design the course. Now look, if they're in first grade, we call it first grade out here, they can't do that too much, but to the degree that they can, you want to have that happen. Include student voice and choice. And this is the critical piece. Address the mechanisms and consequences of oppression. You look at movement culture, and you see that some people are not allowed to participate, or this costs too much, or athletes may be making too much money, and this and that. We have to address those things. Those things don't lead to a democracy. Class should be chaotic right here in the middle of chaos and order. Don't over-control them, but don't just give them absolute freedom. It's got to be messy. Let emergence occur, right? Creativity. This is democracy. Democracy is chaotic. You can't have total control and you can't have total freedom. It has to be like this. It's a dialogue. It's sweet tension. It's hard. I'm going to skip that one. Let's skip that one. All right, so here are some examples of how we do this in my class. So this is a play community. What we do is we do a 2-week, we devote 2 weeks to about 5 or 6 play communities. I will ask the students, what would you like to do for the next 2 weeks? This is like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds that I'll do this with. Maybe 10, 11, 12. I'll say for the next 2 weeks, you have a choice. You get to do this and you come out to class, you set it up, you run it, you referee it, you have to take it down. It's all you. And you'll either do it the entire class, or you'll do it the first 20 minutes of class, and then you put it away, and then you're going to do the stuff that I have you do. And these are called play communities, and they get to choose. My screen may do something weird here, so if it does, I apologize. I could hear my computer running heavy and hot, so there's a chance it ducks out again. But so play communities here. See if you can see it. Oops, wrong one. See if you can see that. We ask them what they would like to do, and they give us some ideas. I select about 6 of them. So they might want to do volleyball, they might want to do badminton, they might want to do parkour, they might want to do gymnastics, basketball, flag football, dance, whatever. And so I give them 6 options, and then they sign up for one of those, and they're going to do that for 2 weeks, and they can't quit. If they say, this is not working out, I say, you have to make it work out. You have to modify it. You have to make it work so that it works. Can't quit. But before they start, once everybody signs up, I get them back together, and I say, okay, the basketball group, go over there and meet. Here, take this form, and you have to fill this out. They have to agree on their terms of engagement. Right? 5 expectations. Or what are the rules? They have to create this stuff. They have to agree on their terms. That's what a democracy is. And they don't always sit in a tight circle and completely listen to each other. But if they don't work at this, if they don't fill this out properly, if they don't listen to each other, they don't get to start playing basketball until they listen to each other. Everybody feels heard, everybody contributes, and they all agree. Then they can play. And so there are kids that they don't want anything to do this, they want to play, but they have to learn that other people's voices matter too. You have to consider them. Now this is chaotic and it's messy, but it's democracy. So this is how in movement culture we can develop democracy, and it develops skill or technique, other capabilities, motor competence, whatever, at the same time. And it makes the point that in our greater movement culture, we consider others. We want the game to be a well-played game. Jigsaw approach, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but essentially you will say, you might want to create a dance. Instead of teachers in the States out here, we're going to say, you're going to do this dance, here's the elements of the dance, show me you know it, and then I'll grade you on it. Instead, what if you said, okay, we're going to break you up into groups. So we have like group A, group B, group C, group D. But everybody, each group has numbers. You have a person who's a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. Okay, so group A over here, B, C, D. And then you have numbers within those groups. I'll say, okay, all the 1s go over there. All the 2s go there. All the 3s go there. Each number, they come up with 2 moves, 2 dance moves. And then what they do is they go back to their lettered groups, and each one of those students teaches the 2 that their numbered group came up with. So at the end, everybody learns the exact same dance, but who invented the dance? The students did. And it's dance. And so that's why it's not me. There's the absence of the external evaluation. And kids who don't like dance will often enjoy this one, and sometimes it's hard for them to overcome it at first because it's dance, but we change some of the terminology and whatnot. Or we just show them Fortnite dances, they'll all do that. But that's one way to do dance without forcing it on them. Okay, negotiated curriculum. One thing I'm trying to explore next year is using councils. Now, I have like 100 students at a time in my class, and I split them up into squads. And so I have 16 squads, and each squad is like a color. So I have like 4 squads are blue, 4 squads are yellow. But so like squad 11 might be a blue squad. So what I'm going to do is have them pick or vote, like leaders, and they're going to develop a council, and they are going to be able to come to me with ideas, propose them to me, propose them to each other. They're going to meet with each other. They're going to check in with each other. They're going to hear concerns. They'll report to me, and we'll all work together to fix stuff. So instead of just me recognizing and doing it right in the spot, they all have to sort of participate in it, just like a democracy. Loose parts. This is part of student voice and choice. We'll just give them lots of equipment, and we'll say, what can you do with this? What can you do with this? It might be a whole class. It might be 20 minutes. This thing we call big cones here. At the beginning, especially for our younger students, you may start class with big cones. Big cone just means look around. If you see a big cone and there's equipment next to it, for the first 12 minutes of class, you can use any of it. You can use any of it. So they come out to class, they get started right away, and they have choice. And you watch the kids. They just buy into class when they get to come out and they get to choose. They get to play. They get to do the things they like. Now, who gets to choose the things that we put out there? Well, it's me. So if it's certain things that I want them to develop or work on, well, I'm the one in charge. I can pick those things. So I can hit all sorts of capabilities over time, but it's their choice to a degree. Grades, well, they suck. Just be careful with grades. That's a whole other topic, but my grades, I work with students to develop a grade. They have a say in it, and it's based on our culture. It's not necessarily based on their performance. They self-evaluate, things like this, self-assess, but are they doing harm, things like that, taking care of each other? We address those things in our grading. Critical inquiry, you got to have this in class. You got to be looking at the greater movement culture, for the health of the movement culture, so that it's grounded in the worth ethic. So one of the ways we do this is, well, we do these things. And they're also embodied lessons. When we start like an Olympic unit or something like that, we'll begin with this picture. Does everybody, raise your hand if you know about this picture. So the kids don't always know about it, and so we'll say, what do you think's going on here? And they kind of tell these stories in their heads, and then we talk about it. And then we go out and we talk about how sport can be a vehicle for equality and things like this. And so now Olympics become something different to them. And it's a way to keep our movement culture healthy and the greater culture healthy. We do a lesson on the Lorax. If you've ever seen the movie or read the book, but one sword comes in, chops trees, destroys everything. We actually pretend the cones are trees. We play a game where they knock over the cones and, oh, look what kind of world you've created. How can we fix this? And there's a whole lesson behind it, but they get to embody that lesson too. They get to feel it in the playing of the game. I'm going to breeze through these because I want to show you some videos of some things that we do. Here's one thing that I've really tried to do the last couple of years. We're trying to develop players in my class. And we're trying to make the world a playground. Right? Transform the world into playgrounds. Open up new possibilities and new meanings, like stairs. So in my class, we have stairs around. Stairs are not just things to walk up down. They're things to jump down. We do parkour up them. We do all sorts of things with stairs. Stairs don't just mean to walk up me. They can mean play with me. When the stairs become like a partner, like a playmate. That's an intimate contact with the world where I can learn about myself and the stairs too. But if you can teach kids, if we can get kids to think of the world as a playground respectfully, it transforms the world and they'll respect it better. So we're always teaching our students how to recognize opportunities for playing with even mundane things like stairs. Everything is a playground and everybody's a playmate. So we say PE means play everywhere and play with everyone. That's what PE means. It's not physical education. Play everywhere, play with everyone forever. That's what PE means for us. So we do some parkour stuff. We do a hike. Kids will come out. They'll start class. They don't have to hear me. They've been listening to teachers all day. They'll come out, and they hike around the perimeter of our school. Let me see if I've got this here. So they'll hike. That's the wrong one. No, I didn't do it yet. But you saw a map of our school there. Let me see if I can find it again. Where'd it go? Oh, it switched the orientation. Never mind. But we hike around the perimeter of our school where the grass is. We pay attention to the trees. We climb stuff. And they go for like 10 or 12 minutes. And they can talk to each other. They can run. They can walk, whatever. And we're teaching them, too, that you want to hike outside of school. Go hike. It's a good thing. We tell them to pay attention to the birds, the grass, the leaves, the trees. We actually have them take notes on what they see sometimes. And they don't have to hear us. And within the hike, we'll teach them different areas. We can teach them about parkour and different moves. So let me just show you an example of that. Can you see this okay?
Yep. Yep. Good.
So those bars aren't made for that, but again, everything's a playground, right? What can you do? What can you do? We ask the students this all the time. What can you do with a curve? This is part of our hike, and they just go around. It's a big area. This is our mountain, so we climb the mountain, or we can jump up the mountain. We can do that on the mountain. kids get to create. They get to create their own like parkour routines. Again, hey, look at that curve. What can we do with that curve? What can we do with that curve? And that kid, he gets to be himself there. They get to invent all sorts of things. And they learn from each other. They teach each other. That is really hard. This is part of our hike. We call it the swamp. We just throw a bunch of stuff out there, and they just have to go from thing to thing, basically, without touching the blacktop. They can go on a line. The blacktop is a swamp there. So we'll put other stuff out there during the hike too. Hey, look at this. You got to jump it. You got to crawl through it. But think about all the movement capacities and capabilities that we're tapping into. This is a river. So that little court they're on is water. And they have these river helpers that pull them across, or we can do something like that. But a lot of choice is built into that too. We just kind of give them some stuff they can do, and then they get to explore. Student-invented games. Let them invent, right? Have them imagine. Look at that cycle. Then create. Then they play. Then they share with others. Then they get to reflect on it. Then they imagine again, create. Instead of you just doing it for them or telling them what to do. We reframe competition in our class. This is part of our critical approach. Is competition, it's about destroying others. Well, for us, we say you play to play. That's the enjoying part of it. The enjoyable part is it's play. You play the game to play. But you also play to be challenged and to challenge. I coached basketball for a lot of years, and if there's 1 second on the clock and I call a timeout and we get to run a play to win the game, someone's going to shout from the stands, "Oh, you running that play to win the game. See, it's about winning the game." Actually, I want to run this play so I can meet the challenge. Because the challenge in front of us is we're down 1 with 1 second, and I want to meet the challenge. We could execute a great play and it just goes out. It goes in and out, and we lose the game. Should I be upset about it? No, why? There's lots of things to get upset about, not that. I want to meet the challenge. So we talk about that with our students so they don't go up and be a bunch of knuckleheads and jerks in the greater play community when they play. Because their parents are that way. So we're trying to transform that movement culture within class, talking about play and competition. We have them do a lot of self-assessment like this. There comes another notification here. Let's see. I'm waiting for it. And we do these journals. So I ask them questions. What do you think about this? And they journal. That's how we do a lot of our assessment. I want to just show you a couple more videos, and then I'll be done here. That's my son watches all those videos of kids playing video games. See all that? I don't get it. Okay, do you know who the Jabberwockies are? Yeah. All right. So that's one of them. These guys, they're in Shanghai. They're walking around dancing. We show the students this video. We talk about playing in public is a good thing. It gives people permission to play. We're going to show you a video of the Jabberwockies dancing around in public. And then if you want, I'll film you. I'll put the same music. We'll splice together a video. We'll show it to the whole school. And this is like an example of that. Although even my internet is really bad all of a sudden. That's a Jabberwocky without his mask, and I hear some of my students. Is the quality really poor on your end?
We can see what's happening though. It's good.
Yeah. You get the idea here. There's one little move I got to show you up here. But all the kids get a chance to do this, and they can do what they want. And I'm not saying that's good dancing, that's bad dancing. It's just do what you want. Express yourself. You got to see this one. There it is. That's the actual video with the actual sound that you're hearing. I just overlay that onto the video and splice in our kids. And they see this and they freak out. Parents emailing, can I see the video? Can I see the video? It's just another way of building community in your class. And what I'm doing is I'm embracing diversity here. I'm saying that counts. Okay, one more. Okay, here's a like a student-invented game. Here's an example of a student-invented game. So we let them invent, we do like loose parts, we let them invent games and they share them with everybody. We get even the youngest kids on campus to come out and play these games, and the older students teach them the games. This is something they invented. And they have to really learn to work together, listen to each other's ideas, consider the skill level of the people who are going to play their games and make modifications. Hit each other. Now you can just think about all the capabilities or capacities that are being developed in play. It's meaningful. And then what we can do is we can come back and we can talk about the process. How was it? Was it hard? Was it easy? What was the hard part? What was frustrating? Well, it was frustrating when people didn't listen, or when they wanted to do this and it was too hard. And there's that critical piece too. So we're constantly doing things like this, exploring, trying new things, letting things emerge. And when it goes too far, we bring it back and we get some control. And we say, why? Why should we control this? And we're always having that culture of respect. And once we establish that, which we try to establish that day one, we can just do so many things. You'll learn about so many things you can do in PE. I don't need to talk to you about that. I'm just giving you ideas about things you can do, but why we should do those things. Let me just switch over to this, and I think I'm pretty much done here. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions?
Oh, that was great. Fantastic, Nate. Gee, I'm sure there are some comments or questions. Everyone might be a bit stunned at the moment, but let them.
I should say, what questions do you have? Right? If you say that, that forces people to ask questions.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you manage those risks? Like some of the very risky movement done by the kids. Like, do you actually give them instructions? Like in your teaching, like when you're teaching creativity, like is there any like risk management?
Right. I'll just catch you up on that question. I don't know if you heard that, but that balance between challenge and risk management. So it's fantastic to see kids doing that, but I suppose there's always, as you said, it's a little bit risky. So has it ever become an issue, and how do you manage that as a professional?
Yeah, so it rarely becomes an issue, but a couple of things I'll do is have conversations with my administrators often about these kinds of things, and then beforehand let them know, have them come out and watch it too. When it comes to parkour, we have like a couple rules. One is you don't get hurt. You cannot get hurt. Because if kids get hurt, we say I have to take it away. So that makes them just be a little bit more careful. Second thing is they cannot do it outside of my class when they're at school. As soon as they do it during the regular part of the day, someone's there yelling at them and telling them, get off that. So they can only do it in my class. But on top of that, we will have a discussion about things that are kind of off limits, or this is too risky. Also, like you saw them going up the mountain, they climbed the mountain. We'll set everybody down there and I'll say, look, here's something you can do. Or, hey, look, here's something I saw the students doing. Let's watch this. Let's talk about how we should do this and how we shouldn't do this. So pretty much anything we do, I've taught it. And I've taught what not to do. It may emerge organically, but I'll go back and make sure everybody's on the same page with what you can and can't do. So that way, that's how I can manage it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
My question is, how do you approach students who may not be so comfortable in certain situations, like dancing?
Okay, so the question was, what about those students who are not comfortable with things like dancing and putting themselves on display and being uninhibited?
Right, that's a great question. So that theme is a really important theme. When I usually do this presentation, I didn't talk about it this time. In the States here, and probably everywhere else, but what we do is we force kids to do stuff. No, you have to do it. No, you have to do it. And if the kid says, I'm not doing it, we say, then your grade is going to suffer. So what you're doing is you're taking a system that I think is mostly illegitimate, and you're hitting them over the head with the system. Hey, you better conform to the system. You better do it because you have to, and your grades and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think you should do that. What I think you do is you ask the kid why not, and you have a discussion. Maybe they're afraid of this or afraid of that. Maybe there are things you can tweak. You can adjust this. You can adjust that. You can make compromises. We'll get students who say, look, I have students that they're definitely different students, and they'll just roam. They'll just start to walk away, and they have IEP meetings, and they have all sorts of accommodations made for them for good reasons at school. They don't just come into my class and sit there, listen, and just do everything I say. They want to come over here and grab that stick. I don't always force them to come right here. I try to get them there as best I can, but if they feel like coming over here and they feel like it's way too much and they just need to be comfortable over here, we have a conversation. We try to come up with a compromise. I say, look, how about you give me 2 minutes of this? If you give me 2 minutes of this, I'll give you 5 minutes of that. But I'll tell them the reason why, too. I really think this is good for you. It's going to help you develop this. Well, I don't want to do that. I hate that. I don't say, well, too bad. You need to know it. I say, well, why do you hate it? Well, it's this, and then I say, okay, you're not wrong. You're right. You hate it for those reasons. And I'm not going to make you do it. But how can I help you find a way to do it? Or what would you rather do instead, then, that could help you work on this? And so we try to have those conversations. I can't always have that conversation right there in the moment. I can have that kid wait for me for a little bit. But I'm not going to demand that they do what I tell them. I'm going to try to get the buy-in through meaning. And if it's too much for them, we're going to find a solution together. And that's that respect for the student. It's not just respect the teacher, it's respect the student. I embrace that diversity, and I'm looking to solve any of these problems. And some problems might not be solved. Well, we just got to go do something else. But that's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Yep. Follow up. Yep.
Sorry. And then in relation to that, how to achieve fairness when grading students so individually?
Right. So in relation to that, how do you grade students fairly?
How do I grade their feeling?
No, how in terms of fairness. So how would that come out if you've negotiated with them, and so the fairness in terms of the grading, if you have to grade, is that right?
Yeah, so if you're grading them so individually, one at a time, how do you make sure that it's fair with everyone?
Right, so if you're grading them individually, how do you make sure it's fair across everybody?
It's not fair. I can't make it fair. I can just try to make it more fair when I try to do it in conversation. And to be honest with you, because I have like 100 students at a time, I have about 900 students that I have to grade every trimester. And I see my students 2 times a week, 50 minutes, 50 minutes at a time, 2 times per week. And there's 100 of them. So how can I accurately assess anything in the first place? Second, who determines what success is? Whatever we're gonna assess, I want them to determine that. So as long as, like you saw those journals, as long as they're trying and they're trying to do a good job, they're participating, they're engaging, they're not harming others, they're gonna get the highest grade they can get. The only way their grade drops is if they're harming others, they're not trying. But if they're not trying, I'm trying to work with ways that we can get them to try. What are you willing to do? But I'll also explain to them, I want you to do this play community. I want you to sit down and listen and hear what people have to say, because that's a capability I have to create in you if you're going to go out into this world and live with others. You have to be able to do it. So I'm gonna demand that you try at least. But if they don't try, maybe their grade drops a little bit. But I'm always giving them reasons why. But I can't ultimately grade them fairly. I think grades sometimes just completely get in the way. I can give them feedback, and ideally what I would be doing is I would just be giving them and their parents feedback on how they're doing, what the goals are, what their goals are, and that's it. No one number or letter to represent all those things. To me, that's ridiculous.
Perfect. Any other questions at all? I suspect we've got a tutorial after this, Nate, and we'll follow up with some of the ideas that you've put on the table, and this is also recorded, so it'll go up online, and people have an opportunity to go back over and reflect on the stuff again. Just one more chance. Anyone else got anything else? No. Okay, so then, sorry.
Just the very last thing is just remind everybody here, and this is essentially what it's about, right? PE can be good. It is movement culture, and it's for movement culture. If you look right there, it develops the capability to participate in movement culture. It keeps the movement culture healthy. And of course, you learn about yourself. There's that personal development stuff that are going on there, right? Right over here. And PE can do this if it's always grounded in the worth ethic, meaning it's meaningful. Use transformative pedagogy, right? It's democratic. And that's where that voice and choice, it's fun, you get challenge in there, that critical piece. If we do that, then what that is, that's PE that's grounded in the worth ethic. And that develops a democratic society, just as a recap there. And that's it.
Okay, look, that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Nate. Gee, it's I think we should all just say thank you to that. That was beyond what I hoped that it would be, because I know how inspirational you always are. So that is fantastic. So look, go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
And see you all so far away, I can't even see anybody's faces, and it's just because I've got that little screen over here on my side. So that disconnection, while it's an honor to be speaking to you, I so much would rather see your face and your reactions and speak with you before the class and after the class, and so it does feel weird doing this. But thank you for having.
We got one question, though. We do have one more question.
I hope it wasn't more.
No.
Can I just ask a question on? Was it by chance that because you teach it at the primary level that you've tried this at that age, or did you, when you were doing your research or when you decided you wanted to incorporate play into your teaching, did you target this age specifically? I've got a 5-year-old child who's just started primary school, and my experiences with the child with my son, is they're kind of starting to incorporate more play when it comes to his education. When I ask him things about how he learns in regards to maths and English and stuff, they have tried to incorporate more play for him to learn, through songs and stuff. So was there a particular reason, or was there anything behind your reasoning into that age group? Because I find, my high school experience, there was nothing like that. Even at university, it's hard. And from a lecturer's point of view, they probably want to teach us in that particular way, or to kind of create a new theory around education. But the reality is, if we become PE teachers, there is a format that we have to teach that's not in that particular way. So I just wanted to know, did you purposely target that age because of how young those children are, or was it just by chance because you teach at that level?
You mean, did I teach at the level I'm teaching at because I wanted to teach that particular age level because
and then you wanted to incorporate play because it was at that age group?
Are you asking, did I want to incorporate play because of that age group? They need more play?
Yeah.
So, no, because even as a high school coach, a varsity high school coach, that was something I wanted to, it probably took me a little while to realize that as a coach, but that was something I wanted to incorporate into our culture anyways, even in practices. The game should be play. It should be, hard and challenging, but it should be play. It should be enjoyable. I think everybody at all ages should be playing, not necessarily playing 24 hours a day, of course, but high school PE should be play-based. A junior high PE, what we call junior high, should be play-based. Now, there's also the work part of it. Remember that work and the play. But what you want is that middle spot where it's work and play at the same time. But just remember, like someone like Steph Curry, I always use him as an example. If you don't know who Steph Curry is, he plays for the Golden State Warriors. The way he practices, he does all these drills with like multiple balls, and he shoots a ton, he does all this stuff. That's play for him. His practice is also a form of play. But for a lot of people, that would not be play. That would be work. It'd be way too much work. But that's a form of play for him. So play is a real ambiguous thing. The point behind play for me, it's not just a kid thing, like especially a younger kid thing. It's got to be an adult thing too. Stuff that you enjoy, makes you feel alive. That's what we need more of. And like Thomas Hanna said, if we don't positively teach the acceptance of that and the value of that, we destroy each other. And that's what happens in competitive movement culture with sport. It's, they're the enemy, we have to destroy them. Don't shake their hand until after the game, or don't even shake their hand or something like that. That's ridiculous. We're humans. Sport is a way that you love each other and celebrate each other. Not a reason to destroy each other. As long as it's that. It's the greed ethic, the work ethic gone mad, and that will not result in anything good. It might be something good for somebody else, but it's not good for everybody else. Think about how many kids don't participate in sport because it's not fun or it costs too much. It's not play for them, so they don't do it. Just imagine if we all played more. If we were able to create the conditions better, if we could agree on terms more so that it was play. It's play for you, play for me, play for them in all these different ways. We would be doing it more often. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
No, that was good. All right. What does it say? Thank you very much. Enjoy Sunday. Appreciate you giving it the afternoon.
I'm going to go to my mother-in-law's house, or my in-laws. That's where my family is swimming, so I'm going to go and jump in the pool and swim with the kids. So I'm going to go play.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Nate. That is great.
All right.
All right. We'll talk soon. See you. Bye-bye.